Have you ever felt like life has lost its meaning? Like the weight of existence has become unbearable, as if a dense fog were covering your soul, preventing you from seeing any possibility of joy or purpose? This state, often called depression, can manifest as a profound emptiness, a sense of disconnection from the world and from yourself. Carl Jung, one of the greatest scholars of the human psyche, saw depression and existential emptiness not merely as illnesses to be eradicated, but as signs that something essential within us needs to be understood and transformed. According to Jung, psychological suffering is often the soul's call for individuation, a process of self-discovery and integration of the repressed parts of our personality. But how do we emerge from this darkness? How do we find the thread that reconnects us to life and a sense of meaning? Deep depression and existential emptiness often arise when we disconnect from our true essence. We live in a world that pushes us toward pre-established patterns: a good job, stable relationships, a predictable routine. However, if these structures do not reflect our true nature, we end up feeling empty, as if we were living a life that doesn't truly belong to us. Jung believed that, throughout life, we create masks, personas, to adapt to society's expectations. But if this mask becomes the only face we show the world, we risk suffocating our true identity. Depression is often a sign that we are living inauthentically. Existential emptiness is the soul's cry, pleading for reconnection with what truly makes us feel alive. Jung introduced the concept of the shadow, the unconscious part of our psyche where we store everything we reject about ourselves. Repressed feelings, unlived desires, and aspects we deem unacceptable often end up buried in this inner darkness. Depression can largely be a side effect of an ignored shadow. When we deny essential parts of who we are, we create an internal split. This conflict manifests as apathy, anguish, and a deep sense of inadequacy. For Jung, the path to healing was not in eliminating the shadow, but in integrating it, recognizing and accepting these rejected aspects as legitimate parts of our wholeness. This means that to overcome depression and existential emptiness, we must confront what we have been avoiding. We must ask ourselves, what aspects of myself have I rejected? What dreams have I abandoned to fit into others' expectations? What desires and emotions have I buried out of fear of judgment? The answers to these questions may be painful, but they are also liberating, because it is precisely in this encounter with our hidden truth that we find the potential for transformation. One of the greatest pains that accompany depression and existential emptiness is the feeling that nothing has meaning. Without a clear purpose, life becomes monotonous, repetitive, and colorless. Carl Jung believed that human beings cannot live without meaning. He saw purpose as a fundamental psychological necessity. When we lack a genuine connection to something that drives us, our psyche begins to deteriorate. But where do we find this sense of meaning? Often, we believe it must come from external sources: a successful career, an ideal relationship, social recognition. However, these are merely external projections. True meaning comes from within, from the encounter with what makes our soul come alive. Jung saw individuation as the path to this rediscovery. This process is not simply about following rules imposed by religious dogmas or societal values, but about discovering what is truly authentic for each of us. He said, "The man who does not go through the hell of his passions also does not overcome them." This means that finding meaning is not a linear or comfortable journey. On the contrary, it often requires us to face our fears, contradictions, and deepest pains. But it is precisely through this journey that we find genuine purpose, something not imposed by the world but born from our very essence. Modern society sees pain as something to be avoided at all costs. We seek distractions, emotional anesthetics, quick fixes to escape suffering. However, Jung reminds us that suffering has an important psychic function. It pushes us toward change. When we ignore pain, we are, in reality, ignoring a call for growth. Depression, as destructive as it may seem, can be the precursor to an inner metamorphosis. It forces us to stop and look within. The question then becomes, what is this pain trying to show me? Am I living a life misaligned with my true self? Am I trapped in patterns that do not reflect my essence? If, instead of rejecting suffering, we could use it as a guide for our transformation, perhaps we would find in it a path to healing. Jung said that what we fear most within ourselves holds the key to our liberation. This brings us to one of the most powerful tools for overcoming depression and emptiness: self-knowledge. Exploring our unconscious, understanding our repressed fears and desires, confronting limiting beliefs. All of this is part of the individuation process. The more we know ourselves, the more we can live authentically, and the less we feel adrift in the vast sea of existence. Carl Jung believed that the process of individuation, the journey to becoming who we truly are, was the key to a meaningful life. But this path requires courage, as it involves looking inward and facing parts of ourselves that we have long avoided. Many try to escape depression and existential emptiness by seeking answers outside themselves, in rigid dogmas, excessive consumption, or momentary distractions. However, these are merely temporary solutions. They may numb the pain for a while, but they do not address the root of the problem. The only real path to healing is reconnection with what Jung called the self, our psychic totality. Self-knowledge is not just about superficial introspection. It requires a deep dive into the unconscious, exploring dreams, behavioral patterns, and symbols that appear in our lives. Jung used techniques like active imagination, where a person engages in dialogue with repressed aspects of their psyche, and dream analysis, which he saw as messages from the unconscious to the conscious mind. Ask yourself, what are my dreams trying to tell me? What recurring patterns exist in my life, and what do they reveal about my psyche? What symbols frequently appear to me, and how can I interpret them? Through this process, we begin to see that depression is not merely an illness to be eradicated, but an invitation to deeper self-understanding. Existential emptiness arises when we live out of alignment with our true purpose, and finding that purpose requires an ongoing dialogue with our inner world. If we want to emerge from depression and emptiness, we must ask ourselves, what makes me feel alive? Often, the answer is not found in grand external achievements, but in small moments of authenticity. For some, it may be art, a way to express emotions that words cannot capture. For others, it could be a connection with nature, philosophy, spirituality, or even deeper and more meaningful relationships. What matters is finding what resonates with your soul, what makes you feel like you are truly living rather than merely existing. Jung said that every person has a personal myth, a unique story that needs to be lived. When we ignore this story and try to follow scripts imposed by society, we feel the weight of existence as a burden. But when we listen to our inner calling, we begin to walk an authentic path, and it is there that we find the true way out of suffering. This means that healing is not a single, instant event, but a continuous process. It requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to explore the unknown territories within us. But it is along this path that life gains new meaning, and existential emptiness begins to give way to wholeness. If self-knowledge is the foundation for overcoming depression and existential emptiness, action is what allows us to solidify that change. Often, we get stuck in endless cycles of reflection, analyzing our feelings and patterns without taking concrete steps to transform them. Jung said that merely understanding our dilemmas intellectually is not enough. We must act in alignment with this new understanding. This means making small daily choices that bring us closer to a more authentic life. Ask yourself, what habits and routines contribute to my stagnation? What can I change, even in a small way, to break this pattern? How can I incorporate activities into my daily life that reconnect me with myself? Depression often creates a state of immobility. The feeling that nothing matters makes us give up on taking action, and the longer we stay in this paralysis, the more we reinforce the cycle of emptiness. That's why one of the fundamental steps to break free from this state is introducing small actions that generate movement, even if they seem insignificant at first. This could mean simply going for a walk, starting a journal, finding a creative outlet to express repressed emotions, or making slight changes to your routine. Small actions create momentum, and that momentum can open space for greater transformation. Another essential factor in overcoming existential emptiness is reconnecting with others. Depression often isolates us, making us feel alone in our pain. But the truth is that extreme loneliness amplifies suffering. Jung believed that much of our growth happens through relationships. It's not just about being surrounded by people, but about cultivating authentic connections, relationships where we can be ourselves, without masks or imposed personas. Seek people who share similar values and can offer a safe space for meaningful dialogue. Activities that encourage genuine connections, such as study groups, art, spirituality, or volunteer work. Deep and meaningful conversations that move beyond superficiality and help explore internal struggles. Human connection doesn't cure depression instantly, but it can provide a mirror, support, and a reminder that we are not alone on this journey. Many people fall into the trap of chasing only positive emotions as a solution to emptiness. However, Jung teaches us that true healing doesn't come from denying pain, but from integrating it. Individuation, the process of becoming whole, does not mean eliminating suffering, but learning to live with it more consciously. It involves accepting that life has dark moments and that these phases are not signs of failure, but opportunities for growth and evolution. Accepting our shadow and our difficult periods makes us stronger and more authentic. It helps us live a life more aligned with who we truly are, without the constant need to escape our emotions. The path out of depression and emptiness is not straight or easy, but it is a journey of transformation. And in that journey, every step toward authenticity brings us closer to a more meaningful life. Jung often spoke about the cycles of death and rebirth in the human psyche. To him, moments of deep crisis, such as depression and existential emptiness, are actually signs that a part of us needs to die so that something new can be born. This is not a literal death, but a symbolic one. The self we have constructed based on external expectations must be dismantled so that we can live more authentically. This psychic death can be frightening because it forces us to confront the unknown. However, it is only by letting go of what no longer serves us that we can create space for a new way of being. This process mirrors the archetype of the hero, which Jung identified in many mythologies. The hero embarks on a journey, faces challenges, and inevitably undergoes a symbolic death before being reborn with new awareness. In depression, this cycle manifests as the destruction of old beliefs and identities that no longer make sense. Ask yourself, what part of me is resisting this transformation? What limiting beliefs do I need to let go of? What is trying to be born within me that I am afraid to acknowledge? If we accept this process as a rite of passage rather than a punishment, we begin to see crisis as an opportunity for growth. Jung saw spirituality as one of the deepest paths to overcoming existential emptiness. He did not advocate for any specific religion, but believed that humans have an innate need to connect with something greater than themselves. This connection can come through religion, philosophy, art, or even the contemplation of nature. The key is not to follow rigid dogmas, but to find a sense of meaning that goes beyond the superficial materialism of modern society. Many who struggle with depression feel that life has lost its magic. The world becomes gray, devoid of purpose. Reconnecting with the mystery of existence can offer a new perspective. Some practices that can help in this process include meditation and introspection. These allow for deeper contact with the unconscious and the observation of thoughts without judgment. Studying ancient philosophies, Stoicism, Buddhism, and even Jung's symbolic alchemy offer valuable insights into life's impermanence and the potential for growth through suffering. Personal rituals, small symbolic gestures, such as writing reflections, lighting a candle at the end of the day, or spending quiet time in nature, can foster a sense of connection with something greater. Jung once said, "Modern man does not realize that he is dying of thirst while surrounded by water. In other words, the answers to our suffering are often already within us, but we are so disconnected from our essence that we fail to see them. Overcoming depression and existential emptiness doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, a journey of small daily transformations that gradually lead to a more authentic and meaningful life. The essential thing to remember is that suffering does not have to be an enemy. It can be a teacher, a guide to something greater. The more we face it with courage, the more we discover that within us lies a strength capable of rebuilding us. The final question is, are you willing to embark on this journey? Because, as Jung would say, what you resist persists, what you accept transforms. If this content resonated with you, if at any moment in this video you connected with these reflections, then I have an invitation. Don't let this journey stop here. Transformation begins with a small step, and maybe that step is subscribing to the channel to continue exploring topics that can shift your perspective on life. So, if you want to deepen your self-knowledge, better understand the human psyche, and discover new ways to find meaning, leave a like so that more people can access this knowledge, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Your support makes all the difference and helps bring this content to those who truly need it. Together, we can bring more light to this path of transformation. See you in the next video.